Herzog Zwei, or if my gringo German is worth anything, Duke 2. If I were to sit here and give out an award for the most interesting and innovative game on the system, this game would get it hands down because it really is something special. Not only has there not been anything quite like this game since, well, maybe with one exception, we'll talk about that, but really, this is a game that did a lot of firsts, or a lot of very early things for its genre and gaming as a whole, and it's a game that I think should be celebrated a lot more and should have 1,000,001 sequels because it is a really cool game. Now, the story to Herzog Zwei is pretty simple because it's an early Genesis game that's basically an arcade-style game. There isn't really much of a plot here. It's a tale as old as time, red versus blue. There are some blue guys trying to invade your territory to spread the ideology that blueberries are indeed the best berries to snack on, but you, being a member of the Red Army, know better. They taste like metal and are awful, so you have to fight back to prove that raspberries are in fact the greatest berries of all time. This game doesn't actually have a plot, but there you go, I at least came up with something for you, and now I'm really hungry and could go for some raspberries because they are definitively the best berry. Either way, there isn't really a plot to this game. It's really just you're some red guys fighting some blue guys on a battlefield, and simply by virtue of the fact that you represent different flags, you have to just consider them the evil menace that needs to be exterminated. But this, of course, means that the game needs to rely a lot more on its gameplay to carry it because it doesn't have story to rely on. And that's where this game excels quite a lot. If you are interested in this game, I'm going to tell you right now, if you intend to buy a copy, make sure it comes with a manual, or that you can get a scan of the manual, or, I don't know, you buy it on the Nintendo eShop as a Sega Ages re-release because that might at least explain some things, because if you go into this without any sort of literature, with no idea what you're doing, you're probably gonna play this game wrong the first time. And that's because this game is pretty complex conceptually. Now, as the game starts out, it is actually an omnidirectional shoot 'em up. You play as this red plane flying around, and you slowly try and hunt down the blue plane. Easy enough, right? Well, eventually you start noticing these little blue soldiers on the ground wandering around and guarding certain locations. Well, fortunately, you have a button that'll let you turn into a flippin' mech so that you can go fight things on the ground. Suddenly, this game is basically a mix of the levels from Thunder Force 2 that I'm the only person who seemed to actually enjoy, and Xevious with mechs. I can get behind that. That's pretty cool, actually. Except that's not quite it either. See, as the match progresses, you'll notice that all the little blue guys, they're starting to walk paths through land bridges and routes to get to other bases, slowly pushing you back and encroaching it, because this game kind of actually is the world's first MOBA. But the real eagle-eyed members out there will notice, hey, that blue plane that's kind of exactly like me, it's actually dropping enemies as well. And that's when it really hits you that you've been spending about 20 minutes playing your first round of this game completely wrong, because this game is not an omnidirectional shmup mixed with a MOBA for some reason. No. The fact that this is an omnidirectional shmup isn't even really relevant to the game itself. It's really more just a delivery vector by which the actual mechanics of the game are presented to you, because this game, it's actually an RTS. There is nothing in this world quite like Herzog Zwei. So, let's try this again. You can open up a menu with one of the face buttons, and this will allow you to see an entire list of things that you can sort of build and prep your army with. This is especially where having a manual is helpful, because this does not tell you anything at first glance. You can see general vague approximations of what you're trying to build, as well as some other shapes, and basically these are the individual units you're going to be building, as well as pre-programmed AI patterns you can build them with. Individual units are soldiers, which you need to capture bases, motorcycles, which as far as I can tell are kind of more or less useless, but they kind of do some early scouting, I guess. Armored cars, which can take a little bit of a beating, but not too much, but they can help for an early assault. Tanks, which have a lot more defensive abilities. Supply vehicles, which do exactly what it says on the tin, as well as anti-personnel cannons and SAMs, which will allow you to target specifically your enemy. Building traps with these is paramount if you want to win, I think. And then you can pre-program them with various responses such as, hey, I want you to patrol or defend this area, go supply other things, or work on capturing bases, depending on what your individual units are. From there, the game will create a little spanner icon out the top of the screen, which tells you, hey, something's being built, which will turn to an OK icon where you can go and pick them up. You then hand deliver them to the battlefield wherever you choose, provided that you can drop them off before you run out of fuel because you have a fuel meter that's constantly ticking down. The key goal here is to capture enemy bases, and there's numerous reasons for this. First and foremost, they'll help you judge where specific areas of contention are going to be on this map, as well as where the various fronts of this battle are going to be. Likewise, they are always passively generating money. When you need to create units, it costs money. So if you want to build things frequently, or you want to build bigger, more impressive units for your army, yeah, you kind of need to be able to fund that, and you need bases to be able to do that. Likewise, your mech has sort of an operational limit based on how much fuel it has at any one point. It can fly back to its standard base to fuel up if you're going to be willing to wait there for a few minutes. However, at any forward operating base you have, you can use that as a refueling point as well, which means that you're constantly sort of carving a path through this map just to allow you to have better access to other bits of the map. The map opens up substantially as you slowly make progress and expand your territory. You can also pick up your units from not only your main base, but these extra bases, so again, you're kind of ultimately moving the battlefronts forward as you slowly capture these areas and expand your territory. In order to capture bases, you need 5 infantry units, your standard soldier guys, to walk to each base, and then they'll just hang out inside of it. You can keep a tally of which soldiers are in it, as there's a little slot that shows you each of the individual sprites inside of it. This can also tell you how many enemy units are occupying ones that the enemy is trying to grab, which might inform you of various targets you might want to send your units to just to cause problems. Ultimately, your goal is to push the battlefronts all the way to your enemy's doorstep and destroy their main base, which, as far as I can tell, you can't personally do with your mech. Even though you can sit there and shoot it, it doesn't seem to do any damage to their actual health bar. You have to get your own units to do it. So building up a stable defense like they do at the start of every round is paramount in order to keep yourself alive in the long run. And when you think you've built up your army well enough, you haven't, because you have to keep them stocked. See, this game gets more and more complicated as you go. You have to build up supply trucks so that each of your SAM sites and soldiers can have bullets, because after a while they will run out if they're not destroyed, and if that's the case, they're sitting ducks, and you have to defend them either manually or have them do it themselves, but they can't if they don't have bullets. So not only do you have to watch your own fuel, your own health, your base's health, but your individual units as well. This game gets really complicated really quickly, and it becomes a very deep, very engaging strategy game. I love it. Numerous strategies you could employ, just trying to grab as much land as possible, sending out a blitzkrieg of enemies straight to your enemy's doorstep as quickly as you can just to be an annoyance. Try to actively shoot your opponent down so they can't drop more units on the battlefield, or you could just straight up take out their units themselves. There's numerous ways to play, and every single unit invites a different strategy to accompany it. And that's what makes this game really complex. It is an RTS that has a lot of options to it. There's a total of 8 maps with 5 different sort of difficulties. As far as I can tell, the only difference between the difficulties is really the individual units that are actively guarding the enemy's main base at the start, but there's variation here, and there's tons of different hazards with each and every different map, from water hazards to giant cracks in the ground that you have to sort of navigate around, lava, because there always has to be a lava level. It's a Genesis game, it's mandatory. The point is, there's a wide variety of theaters of war that you can take your battle to, and they're all pretty fun, I think. The overall presentation to Herzog Zwei is pretty awesome. You know, for such an early Genesis game, I think it looks really nice. The individual screens could stand to explain a little bit more to you, but otherwise I think it works very well for what it does, and it has a great visual style. And audio-wise, this is a techno-soft game, so first of all, you know it's gonna be awesome, but also more importantly, you know it's gonna be built specifically with the Genesis sound chip in mind, which means it's gonna be one of the better soundtracks on the system, and it's absolutely killer. My favorite song in particular is a song called Sniper, which to me feels like the embodiment of an individual round of this game. It starts off kind of slow, kind of tense, a little paranoid, and then hits you with a lot of action all at once. Such an awesome song. I think there is a soundtrack of this game out there. I'm gonna have to try and track it down at some point because the music is just that good. Now, if you want a copy of Herzog Zwei on the Genesis, cheapest copy I see right now is $55. However, This is, of course, without a manual, so you'd have to track down like a scan or something with it. If you want one with a manual, that's, a North American copy, because that is getting a lot more complicated with these calculations. The cheapest copy I can see is complete for about $150, which is a substantial increase. Fortunately, however, you can also get this digitally on the Nintendo Switch for about $8, and from what I can tell, there's like a tutorial that actually explains stuff in it, which is helpful. Although I will say it does have some issues. I haven't played it myself, but just looking at their store page and their marketing material, it looks like they changed the GUI to be a lot busier, which I don't think benefits anything. Either way, I think Herzog Zwei is definitely a hidden gem. I don't hear too many people talking about it, and it was a very, very early game for the system, but this was like one of the earliest console RTSs out there, and it was delivered as a shmup of all things. That is such a weird combination that I don't think necessarily immediately strikes me as making a lot of sense for an RTS, but it works excellently. And I feel like this is one of those games you gotta have if you're collecting for the Genesis. This one's just a must-have. It's amazing. Here's where we come to kind of the sad thing in all this. I mean, it's been about 30 years since this game came out, and we've never seen a Herzog Zwei, so why did this never get a sequel? It really was a very special, very innovative, very good game. Maybe Technosoft was just busy pumping out more Thunder Force games, and for what it's worth, those games are awesome because it's Technosoft, but no one ever decided to really try and make another one. Well, there was one game that kinda came a little bit close. It was on the Xbox 360, and from what I remember, it was a free downloadable game called Ermac, which actually is on Steam right now, and it's still being updated today. Like, the last update was a couple weeks ago. It's still being actively maintained, and that is awesome. It seemed like the closest thing that ever came to Herzog Zwei, and the closest thing to a sequel we ever got. And it's kind of sad that after all this time, we've never really gotten another one of these games, because this game is awesome, and there should be more of it, and I think this is a game that would be pretty heavily collectible, considering how special it is. Well, whether or not this becomes a massive, special, collectible gem or not, at least you know about it. And that means this game will be remembered, and that's all I can do.